I was waiting for the water to boil when the message arrived. Not from her, from one of her friends. One sentence. She needs time. Don't try to find her. This is for your benefit. The kettle shrieked. I let it. I stood there with my phone in my hand, watching steam slide up the cabinets, slow and deliberate, like it had intention. My wife had already been gone 12 hours. No call, no note, just the vacant side of the bed and the faint trace of her perfume, still clinging to the pillow like a story that hadn't learned how to end. I replayed our last conversation over and over. Her smile had been too measured. Her hug lingered a second longer than usual. People don't disappear to get space unless they think absence gives them leverage. That was when something inside me went still. I didn't spiral. I didn't plead. I didn't start dialing her friends. I sat at the table, opened my laptop, and began writing down everything that belonged to me. A marriage doesn't collapse because someone leaves. It collapses because someone chooses to leave with intent, and intent leaves marks. By day 2, the truth started bleeding out. Her friends' social feeds lit up like a rehearsed performance. Healing vibes. Choosing yourself. A beach I didn't recognize. A mirror selfie in a hotel room where her bracelet rested on a stranger's wrist. I zoomed in. I always zoom in. She hadn't gone to clear her head. She'd gone to make a point. I remembered every evening those friends sat in my living room, wine glasses in hand, laughing a little too loudly, slipping doubts into her ear like seeds they were sure would sprout. They called it empowerment. I called it conditioning. They didn't want her content. They wanted her unaccountable. I stayed silent. On the 3rd day, I called the bank. On the 4th, my attorney. On the 5th, a locksmith. I learned years ago that anger creates errors. Quiet builds strategy. Her cards weren't canceled, they were paused. Enough to sting, not enough to alert. Access to our shared accounts was reorganized cleanly, legally, temporarily. My lawyer said temporary was sufficient. I drafted the documents slowly, reading every clause the way a surgeon studies bone. There's specific language about abandonment, about intentional disappearance, about deliberate emotional harm. Turns out the law has no interest in your friend's opinions. On the 7th day, she finally texted. Why aren't my cards working? No apology. No explanation. Just inconvenience. I didn't reply. My lawyer did. Courteous message. Cool. Formal notice of separation. Notice of annulment proceedings. Notification that the locks had been changed for my safety and mental well-being. I pictured her reading it. The hitch in her breath, confusion thickening into fear. Not because she missed me, but because she no longer controlled the story. That evening, the doorbell rang. I watched through the camera as she stood on the porch, mascara smeared, a suitcase behind her like a prop she hadn't practiced with. She looked smaller, not delicate, diminished. She knocked again, harder. When the door opened, it wasn't me. It was her sister. The same sister she'd spent years undermining. The one she'd labeled unstable. The one she never thought I paid attention to. I stayed out of sight. I heard my wife's voice fracture. Why are you here? Her sister didn't raise her voice. She never did. He asked me to be. Silence stretched. Then I stepped forward. Just enough for her to see me, not enough to touch. I know everything, I said. I didn't elaborate. I didn't have to. I slid a folder through the gap in the door. Screenshots, statements, a timeline she couldn't edit. Messages where her friends coached her, how long to stay gone, what to say when she returned, how I'd eventually cave. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages. This was supposed to frighten you, she whispered, not end us. I nodded once. That's the difference between us. She cried then, loud, uncontained, the kind meant to awaken guilt. I felt nothing. No relief. No triumph. Just distance. Her sister closed the door gently. Not in her face, just closed. Later, alone, I sat in the quiet house and listened to it settle. No tension in the walls. No footsteps to interpret. And I understood something I hadn't expected. I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning the version of myself that believed love meant enduring disrespect. I sent one last message. Not to her, to myself. Never bargain with someone who disappears to feel powerful. Some lessons don't require forgiveness. They require consequences.